Okay.
Good morning, Florence. Good morning, John.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. I was confused. I thought it started at 11 o'clock Eastern time, not 9 o'clock.
11:30.
Where was it listed at 11:30? I didn't see it anywhere.
In Board Effect and on the website.
Oh, I see. Okay. I was looking on the website and it just, Lori never mentioned it when on the hookup, the time, but I
You
must
know,
have missed it.
John,
Okay. Huh?
John, I texted about six people saying, I can't get in. It says
Yeah.
waiting for host.
Me too. Me too. I even emailed Lori and then she said it starts at 11:30. Oh, okay. Yeah.
I know. We're creatures of habit.
Yeah, we are. Well, I thought always says 11 o'clock. Hi, Terry.
Morning, John. Morning, Florence.
Good
Hi.
morning, Terry.
Morning, Lori.
It's actually Amanda right now.
Oh, good morning, Amanda.
That's Amanda. That's Amanda's voice. Yes. Unmistakable.
How are you, John?
I'm good.
Good.
Yeah, good.
Good.
Recovered from my illnesses and getting my strength back, feeling really good on top of things now.
So glad.
Yeah,
See
it's
what you
crazy
get,
time.
John, for a 1-year birthday party?
Yes, I had my 1-year birthday party.
No, 1 year long.
Well, that's right. I did. I celebrated all year, starting in January, and I had my last party on December 14th. It was really good.
Good morning, John.
Hey, good morning from Indiana, where it's 19 degrees today.
Oh my gosh.
Ooh. From
We're having
Portland,
a
where it's 32 degrees.
heat wave here.
Oh, it was 31 degrees here in Phoenix that last night.
Amazing.
Really?
Yeah, that was very unusual. Very unusual.
Morning, Jan. Morning, Jim.
Jim and Jan. And there's Eric. Hi, Eric.
Hi,
Hi,
Eric.
Jenny.
Good morning.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Jan.
How you doing, Miss Jan?
Oh, I'm good. How about you?
Good. Good.
The sun is starting to shine. It's melting this mess of snow we have, and we're getting ready to get back to life.
Did you say back to life or back to light?
Life. We've been
Life.
staying at home doing nothing.
Yeah.
Have you had a lot
Right.
of snow there?
We did. In the Little Rock area, it's anywhere from 12, 13 inches.
Whoa.
I mean, it was a great snow. The kids are still having fun, bless their little hearts. And it just keeps going. They're out of school again today because the back roads are still bad.
Wow.
Oh well, let them go.
Really? Give them a little break.
Yeah.
That's right. In Kansas, we never had snow days. We went to school regardless.
You walked a mile back and forth.
Uphill both
Uphill
ways.
both ways.
That's
And
right.
did
We
you carry
did.
your lunch?
That's right. Had to carry my lunch and everything. Boy, these kids have it easy these days.
Me too. Morning, Jennifer.
Good morning. Are you able to hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we can hear you, Jennifer. Good morning.
Hi, John.
Hi.
All right. I just wanted to log in a little bit early and make sure that you guys could hear and see me. So now that I've done that, I'm going to just turn my camera off and my volume and
How
take care.
come? Where you going?
Where am I going? Well, I'm still technically at work. So I was trying to, kind of do work stuff until the last minute.
Oh, okay.
Morning, Jenny.
Jenny, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I didn't know you spelled your name with one N.
I do. I am in Washington, D.C.
So's
So
Florence.
am I.
Are you?
Yeah, just being a tourist.
Me too.
Yeah, it's
Actually,
gorgeous.
I came for the National Gallery of Art French
So did
Impressionists.
Florence.
That's
Yeah.
why I'm here.
I was not going to join this meeting because I have friends that I'm meeting here for it. But I decided last night I have to be here, so here I am.
Good morning, Chris.
Good morning. Oh, that's why it's not working and my video turned on. There we go.
Jenny, I'm flying into DC this evening. I'll be there until Wednesday morning when I fly back home.
My gosh.
But mine's for business, not for play.
Morning, Lori.
Morning, everybody.
Nice.
Morning. How's sunny Florida?
Better than snowy Ohio. It's the weather. That's the main thing. The weather, much nicer.
Hi,
Hi,
Millie.
Millie.
Good morning, all. How are you?
Good.
Good gracious. I wish I could remember how to use Zoom on this iPad.
Well, you're in, so that's good.
Yeah, I like to change the view so I can see everybody, and it's just giving me grief. I got it better. I
How
fixed
do
it.
you change? How do you change the view so you can see more people at a time?
Well, I don't know how to do it for more people, but I know that if you hit gallery view versus speaker view, if you have it on speaker,
Got it.
sorry, if you
Got
have
it.
it on speaker, then you only get the one person.
Got
Miss
it.
Quinn, say hello.
Oh, there's a pretty kitty.
Yeah, she hears the voices and she has to come up and see who it is. And she heard John Hollywood was here. She said, "Woo woo! I gotta say hi."
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
All right,
She's-
she's up.
She's brought you a lot of joy, hasn't she, Millie?
She's the best decision I've made in a very long time. She's a
I'm
wonderful
so happy
travel.
for you.
She gets into trouble, but she keeps me entertained. We had a great time at the Rose Parade rally. She made lots of friends, four-legged and two-legged.
Oh,
Are you
boy,
worried she'll get out?
you got out
Huh?
of there in the nick of time, huh, Millie?
Holy crap. In more ways than one, besides the fires, on the way home, I was delayed 2 days with automotive issues, and right behind me was the snow pile up in Las Cruces coming across.
Yeah.
So I beat that by a day. So it's crazy. And it's been chilly here. I hope you guys are having warmth wherever you are.
Fine chili.
Yeah.
20s overnight some days. I just refill my propane again.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
It was
I know.
-5 this morning.
Yeah, born and raised in Massachusetts, I should be used to it. I still have just never liked the cold.
Well, that's why they invented Florida.
Yeah, that's true. I spent a lot of years there too.
Yep.
Texas needs to work on their winter weather.
Yeah, the cold weather is why I moved from Kansas to the Southwest.
There you go.
I had several friends that totally lost their homes in the LA fires in Altadena and also in Pacific Palisades. Nothing, just gone, just ash, everything. It's unbelievable. Such a tragedy.
It is. It's terrible. I feel for all of them.
I think it's one of these things where when one lives through a natural or experiences a natural disaster, it's really shapes one's life. Laverne and I here in Northern California, we lived through the first big firestorm, 2017. I think we lost like 5,000 houses overnight, I think, basically. And what I was sharing with someone, I was working at the city of Santa Rosa then. So I was at our emergency operations center for the large part of the response time. But typically fires, they will go along the ground. And so they're reasonably easy to fight. But in a firestorm, the winds are so high that you get tree to tree or aerial movement of the fire. So it's really hard to stop because the fires are jumping from tree to tree to tree. And the embers are going 5-10 miles away and under 100-mile-an-hour winds. And you can't get air support in, right? Just because they can't get tankers in there and stuff. So it's really, really a problem. And it's just, it's crazy, actually. But yeah, the weather has been really bad. Well, around the nation, frankly. We were just obviously at Jackson Center. We still have the hailstones on our trailer. And of course, what happened in Sedalia, with the hurricanes out there. And of course, ice storms in Texas and blah, 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 floods, right? One thing we'll talk about in the IBT meeting, Sean will talk and a couple others will talk about, is there a role for our club to help identify emergency locations for our members to go. Because as you can imagine, if you have to evacuate your home with an hour notice or half-hour notice, if you can hook up your Airstream and leave with your Airstream and not have to pay for a hotel, the challenge then is that where to go with this 50-foot going down the road with the highways packed. And so if we could identify members' homes, and you guys can probably imagine a number of our members have reached out to other of our members. They offered their homes to pull in front of or stay or courtesy parking. I mentioned the Airstream Inc. It was very helpful in the early days of it, of trying to figure out places where our members could go to maybe at a dealership. Our relationship with Harvest Hosts was helpful. I contacted them also. So I think there may be some discussions we can have about how to identify places for our members to go if and when they have to get out quickly. But it has to be done in advance. It's like any other emergency operations plan, right? You can't do it when it's happening. It's got to be done in advance and fairly simple to communicate. All right, we'll
Hey,
start.
can I jump in here, Eric? We have Sean, Blum, Mona, and Fred Keel. I've been told that you guys are declining the panelist invitation to move you on to camera. So Amanda's gonna resend that to you. So when you guys see that panelist invitation, please say yes, so we can get you on camera.
Thanks,
Thank
Laurie.
you.
All right, we're gonna start at a minute. We have a lot to go over today. Well, we may or may not, but I want to make sure we try to lead.
We've got Mona now, Fred.
And then Sean.
Quick thought while we're waiting that additional minute. So based on what you were saying, Eric, about evacuation, and I think Marquis Mooney once did a presentation about escape pod. Somebody else did at an international rally. I think I might go pack my Airstream, right?
Well, it's well known that people use our Airstreams for escape pods. I mean, seriously, if you're thinking about getting evacuated and your choices are staying in a hotel or on a gymnasium floor for an indeterminate amount of time, hook up your Airstream and just get out of the area. So anyway,
it takes us 2 hours to pack, so we don't have that long. So we're going to go ahead and pack it now.
Well, I guarantee you, once you go through an evacuation, it no longer takes you 2 hours into the pack because you've got your essentials in there. And if you view it as that, right? If you view it as tank's full, water tank's full, I'm just going to scoot hit the road if I have to. It's something we might want to talk about. Yeah, Lori.
You know, Sean, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to get the meeting going. Sean, I know we lost you. You may have lost. Amanda is sending you a participant invite, and that's what's going to put you on camera. She said you just declined it again, so she's going to resend it again. So if you could please hit yes, so we can get you on camera, that'd be great. Thank you.
All right, so it's 8:30. Well, where I am Pacific. Let's get going. First of all, Terry, quick roll call, please.
Yes. Eric, you're here. Millie O'Donnell. I can see everybody. Oh, there's Sean. Okay,
Here.
Millie's here. Ellen is not here, right? Ellen Robb is not here.
Correct.
I also don't see John Becker.
Correct.
Jim Cock,
Yes, I'm here.
Kathy Giese.
Here.
I don't see Marcia House. Jenny Schnettler's here.
Yes.
Kendall, I don't see Kendall Felder. Mona, Michael Ginta. Don't see
Michael's in the attendee. We're trying to promote him. So Michael, when you see promote to panelist, please accept it.
Gary Russo,
Here.
Bob Ely. Don't see Bob Ely. Fred Keel.
Here.
John Deegan.
Here.
Jan Heavener. I saw Jan.
Hello.
Hi, Jan. Chris Olson.
Here.
I don't see Rick Everson. Does anybody see Rick? Tracy Elkins.
Here.
Lawrence Tremoni.
Here.
John Holly.
Here.
Sean Bloom. I saw Sean. Hi, Sean. Lori Grassi.
Morning.
Lori Tilton.
Here.
And Jennifer Dice is
Morning, I'm
joining.
here.
Good morning, Jennifer. That's it, Eric. We're
right, thanks, Terry.
we're missing 7.
Yeah, so as they pop on, you don't have to announce it live. The Zoom logs will show you when they pop on, but let's get going.
Michael.
Got it.
All right, so just for anyone who isn't familiar with the study sessions, they're designed not to make decisions. And in fact, specifically, We are not to make decisions, right? This is just a discussion. It's an opportunity for the motion makers, which in this case are CBL chair and LRO chair. It's a chance for the motion makers to gather feedback so they can fine tune their motions. Now, these motions are published already. They're on airstreamclub.org/IBT, our standard location for motions. If you're a board member, then they are on Board Effects. So you can look at the actual motions there if you wish to. We're going to keep it an hour. I've asked all three presenters. So first it'll go Jim Cox / Jennifer. We each get 10 minutes. And then we've added it to Gary Russo, and he's got 10 minutes also. He had some outstanding things that we didn't get to cover in the last IBT meeting. So thanks, Gary, for being patient and wrapping it into this one. But then I want to reserve a half hour for discussion, right? Remember, no voting. This is a chance to clarify, to ask questions such that we all can be prepared to vote, an informed vote on the 23rd. A little bit of background also on these, just kind of where we are for, I know the IBT knows this, but I feel like I have to share this for people that may not understand this. We occasionally, as an IBT, form what are called special committees, and they're intended to be short duration, usually a year or less. They are specifically targeted at a certain task, a certain research that the board needs to hear about before the board makes a decision, right? So after the Constitution was amended in the spring last year, then Chair Brad Briggs said, hey, there's a whole bunch of stuff that just need to get figured out in the bylaws and policies. And he asked that I form a special committee. And I did. And I asked who wanted to be on it. Brad offered, Jennifer Dice offered, which made a lot of sense because most of the topic at the time were things related to just minor changes and minor clarification in the bylaws and policy. And also it involved recruitment. So that's how it got started. And it ultimately got called the Capstone Committee. I don't think anyone expected it would be this complicated, but we are where we are now. And so the goal of the Capstone Committee, I think their job will finally wrap on the 23rd at the IBT, was to provide the IBT, the voting members, you all, with enough information such that you guys could make informed votes. All right, the other thing I just want to stress is that we as a board cannot change the Constitution, right? The Constitution is managed by, controlled by the membership. So the only changes to Constitution that can ever happen are through a constitutional vote, right? So that's off limits for the IBT. I think everyone on here knows that. The discussions we're having as part of the Capstone team are on underlying bylaws and policies that must be done consistent with the upper Constitution, right? Make sense to everyone? Okay, and with that, let me hand it over to, let's see, Jim or Jennifer. Who's going to go first?
I am.
All right, on to you, Jim.
Okay. Greetings, folks. Thanks for being here. I appreciate your dedication. As the CBL committee interim chair, I want to strongly encourage you to pass the bylaws and policy motions at our meeting next week, either as submitted or as amended by you during that meeting. These motions address ambiguities about who can run for the Executive Council and for international officer positions, as well as improving and amending language to clarify important issues that the Capstone Special Committee and the CBL Committee identified in those documents. Please keep in mind the only binding rules that direct our elections are those in the WBCCI Constitution, bylaws, and policy. Other documents are nothing more than non-binding opinions. Our binding documents need to be refined to allow a proper election process to happen. There are some points that are ambiguous and that need clarification in that respect. For example, the Constitution says in Article 8, Section 2, all executive officers except the finance director shall be elected from the eligible executive council members by the IBT for a term of 2 years. These officers so elected shall take office at the start of the WBCCI fiscal year. No such officer shall serve more than 2 consecutive terms. It's clear these executive officers were elected by the IBT for the first time ever in 2023. It's perhaps less clear whether the 2 consecutive terms exclude any terms served before that election of executive officers by the IBT. The statement, "no such officer," seems to refer specifically to those officers elected in 2023. Well, here's where you come in. The Constitution states that the IBT has the full authority to construe and interpret the Constitution, bylaws, and policies. It's up to you, it's up to us to address the issues by passing the motion, amended or not. The motion is written so that you can easily change it if the IBT decides a different starting term should be used for this purpose. Thanks for your dedication to the club and looking at these motions. And let's keep this a constructive meeting, folks. Thank you.
All right, I guess it's my turn. Thank you, Jim. So some of what I have is also a bit redundant from what Jim also said, and that's because that information is important to hear. I'm Jennifer Dice, as you're probably familiar. I'm the chair for the Executive Council Restructure Capstone Committee, which we shortened to Capstone for obvious reasons. So in the winter of 2024, as Eric already pointed out, the CBL committee identified ambiguities in the Blue Book regarding the Executive Council and requested formation of the Capstone Committee. The scope of this committee's work was to define and simplify terms and conditions of service on the Executive Council, to address any other ambiguities we found in the Blue Book, and to clarify language in the Blue Book regarding the EC restructure. A committee of 5 members from various regions came together, reviewed numerous background documents, combed through the Blue Book, and had many intense discussions in order to bring you solid recommendations. If the motion passes, the recommendations contained within will clarify the number of years in a term, communicate how many terms may be served on the EC, define a hiatus period, solidify the start date of the Executive Council, clarify terms of service in the prior club structure, define positions executive officers may serve in after hiatus, and communicate how a midterm vacancy is filled and the impact to future terms. As background, and this is much of what Jim already discussed, in June 2023, the WBCCI held its very first election under the new Executive Council framework. This was the first time any member could submit a statement of candidacy to show their interest in serving on the Executive Council. It was the first time every member had their individual vote counted directly for the candidates that they thought would best serve the club. It was also the first time executive officers were elected by the IBT from the top 9 Executive Council members elected by the club membership. This is important because in 2023, not 2022, all of these steps were taken exactly as outlined in the process laid out in the Blue Book. Jim already spoke to you about Constitution Article 7, Section 1B, and Article 8, Section 2. I'm not going to requote those because he did an excellent job of doing so. But the reason that we both bring it up is because that is what's codified in writing in the Blue Book, our governing document. So let's get into the meat of the actual motion. In Article 8, Section 4.2, we've identified that Executive Council term shall be 2 years. EC members may serve on council for 3 terms, and the exception is the immediate past president, who may serve on the council for a maximum of 4 terms. Each EC member may run for an executive council position after a 6-year hiatus, and that hiatus starts once the member is no longer, they no longer have voting rights on the IBT. For our committee's viewpoint on the years and terms, The 2-year term is already part of the Constitution in Article 8, Section 2. Previously, some things were defined by years, while other things were defined by terms in the CB&P. We thought it best to clearly state that the term is equal to 2 years to remove any ambiguity, and then speak in terms throughout the Blue Book to bring clarification and simplification to the document. 3 terms was also previously in the bylaws, Article 8, Section 4.2. It allows a new member to get experience in their first term before being able to run for an executive officer position, should they choose to. 3 terms also provides time to stay involved in long-term strategic initiatives for those members who do not aspire to an officer position. And then the additional 1 term for granted to the PIP just makes sense. The community's viewpoint on the 6-year hiatus was that 6 years is a future forward-looking concept, and it acknowledges that some of our members may serve early in their membership and then age into the desire to serve additional terms during their lifetime. It allows for sufficient time to pass to ensure a member who applies again is truly interested in continuing the strategic direction established by club leadership with their fresh eyes and ideas. No more voting rights gives a definitive start to the hiatus. And 6 years simplifies the terms and keeps them consistent with other terms of office, which is easier to remember and calculate, both for our members and for our volunteer team that will have to do that work. In Section 6.3, service beginning in election year 2023 shall be the start of the EC and officer term limits. Service prior to the 2023 election applies only to experience for officer eligibility. The committee's viewpoint on this was that it focused on drawing a line in the sand that is definitive, inclusive, level setting, and easy to understand and calculate. The 2023 start date level sets everyone to the same time. There's no complicated calculation to determine if someone served 1 year under the old governance system or 2 years under the new structure. Keeping that kind of complexity potentially puts some members in a position where they're ineligible to serve a full term under the new structure. And we don't want to do that to people that are willing to volunteer for these positions. The Constitution and bylaws were ambiguous on a specific start date, but they do clearly outline the expectations in the process. Again, a start date of 2023 election is supported by the Constitution in Article 7, Section 1B, and Article 8, Section 2, as discussed previously. Members are still in charge of determining who is voted onto the EC, no matter what year you choose. The IBT is still responsible to elect each officer position. These 2 items are strong safety nets that give membership and IBT the power to prohibit current officers from serving in the same role again, if they so desire. Lastly, members will easily understand why the 2023 election is the first term in the new governance structure. Again, it aligns with the first time any member could apply for leadership at the international level, vice a nominations committee who recommended the slate of officers. It aligns with the first time every individual member was able to vote for a candidate that applied, vice delegates that voted with the strength of their club. And it aligns with the first time the IBT voted on executive officers from the eligible council members elected by the membership, vice automatic ascension to leadership. In sections 5.6 and 5.7, the term the immediate past international president ends when a new president is installed or a maximum of 4 terms on the executive council has been served. And 7, the required IPIP hiatus time may be paused if called to fill a vacancy in the IPIP position during their hiatus. The committee's viewpoint on this was that it acknowledges potential for a declining pool of IPIPs who may be unable to serve. It also allows a PIP, voted into the role by the PIP Council not to be penalized for the hiatus time if they so desire to apply for a position on the EC again. Sections 5.9 and 5.10, past international vice presidents and international secretaries may serve as international officers again after waiting the required hiatus. After a person has served 2 terms as the international president, they are no longer eligible to be an international officer. Terms served as president are not required to be consecutive. And after the hiatus, a past international president who served those 2 terms as president may only return as an EC member, not an international officer. The committee's viewpoint on this was to allow all executive officers a bite at the apple, so to speak, to be president, should they not do that during their first 3 terms. It acknowledges that the past president can still add value to any EC position, even without being an executive officer, and it limits time at the helm. Article 10, Section 2.d. The vice president shall serve as president pro tem if there's a midterm vacancy in the presidency, until the president is able to resume their duties or until a permanent replacement is elected by the IBT to fill a midterm vacancy. This time will not be counted as time in the president position. The committee's viewpoint on this was that it seemed like a natural progression of who would back up the president in case of a vacancy. It does not penalize the vice president with time off of their term as a future president, should they aspire to run for that position. In closing, I'd like to say that I did some research last night after reading a social media post. In it was stated that it was all agreed upon by that the transition year would continue as a full term in office, and referred readers to the Savannah IBT minutes. In response, there was another person that stated that the language is in the Constitutional Amendment 2 from the summer of 2022. They said it stated clearly that the proviso that the new leadership structure would begin on August 1st, 2022, and that it was clearly understood by everyone attending the discussion that the first year of the new structure in 2022 would count as a full 2-year term. As a new member and member of this committee, I could not figure out how I would know to look through years of proposed motions to gain an understanding of how this club functions. What I do know is that the motions are voted on at each IBT meeting, and the language from those motions are transferred exactly as written to the Blue Book. This has been quite an experience, and it shows me why there are so many hours and a lot of collaboration with the CBL to ensure that a motion captures everything and is consistent with the Constitution. I also know that our club follows Robert's Rules of Order, and there are several locations in that speak to the authority of governing documents, requirements for recording and codifying amendments, and proper recording of actions, just to name a few. What I found, which is important for this IBT to know and consider, is that according to Roberts, an organization's constitution, bylaws, and any formally adopted governing documents are the highest authority. All motions, resolutions, or rules must align with these documents to be valid. If a motion or amendment is passed, but not formally integrated into the governing documents, it does not have standing. In another section, it states that if a motion, such as a proviso, is not recorded in the bylaws or a standing policy, it is not enforceable. Our club is governed not by hearsay and discussion. It is governed by the Blue Book, which has supremacy. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Gary.
Good morning, Mr. President. Thank you for the opportunity to speak at this IBT session. I'd ask that you please wait to the end of my presentation, and I will be more than glad to address any questions at that time. My name is Gary Russo, and I am the current Region 2 President. Suzanne and I purchased our first Airstream in 2016 and quickly realized the camaraderie that the WBCCI club provided. My journey through the Airstream Club ranks started in 2018, becoming the New York Finger Lakes president, followed by second and first, and finally Region 2 president. The purpose of my presentation is to address the bylaws and policy motions that are numbered 2025-106 that I received on Wednesday, January 8th, 2025 by Jennifer Dice, Recruitment Oversight Chair, and Jim Cock, the interim CBL Chair. These motions appear to be a blending of three motions that were pulled from the November IBT meeting. In the spring of 2024, the Constitution and bylaws was requested by President Eric McHenry to clarify the term limits of the Executive Council members and international officers. The CBL Committee's research uncovered uncertainties that needed further explanation in the Blue Book, which is the WBCCI Constitution, the bylaws, and policies. The formation of a special committee, the Executive Council Restructure Capstone Committee, was established to examine the issues and conflicts identified by the CBL Committee, specifically to resolve uncertainties discovered in the Blue Book and clarify the terms and conditions of service of the Executive Council. In one of the pulled motions, the following statement was recorded, and I quote, "The Capstone Committee concurred with the concerns raised by the CBL Committee and their assessment. However, to simplify matters, ensure clarity, and look toward the future, the Capstone Committee recommends that the club reset the process by defining the Executive Council time as starting with the 2023-2025 Executive Council term." Close quote. This statement differs from the original intent of the constitutional vote of 2022. The Capstone Committee recommendation appears to ignore the constitutional membership vote of 2022. During a special meeting held on April 5th, 2022, before the constitutional vote for the proposed structure, a question about the 2022-2023 term was asked by Larry Madden, then Region 6 president, to the transition team and answered by Bill Weil, who was seated on it, who at that time was the Region 3 president. The response by Bill was that the 2022-2023 term would be considered a full term despite only being 1 year in length. Participants in this meeting included Eric McHenry and Tom Smithson. Neither of them questioned Bill's clarification. In the spring of 2024, a second CBL investigation affirmed Bill Weil's clarification. The 2022-2023 year on the EC would be considered a full term. This clarification of 1 year being a full term is further supported by bylaws, Article 8, Section 4, 3D. Before I reiterate some of my additional concerns, I understand that the bylaw motion has grown from originally 3 pages to 16 pages, and the policy motion has also grown to 14, for a total amount of 30 pages. These are just some of my concerns about this combination bylaw policy motion as follows. Using a red line method different from previous motions. Red line changes are not accurately reflected in Exhibit 1, which could lead to errors when inserted into the Blue Book. Start dates of the EC different from region presidents. This could confuse the club membership as to who is serving when. Also, the removal of the requirement for an appointed parliamentarian. The finance director pro forma biannual confident vote promised to the membership is now not included. Numerous errors of mislabeling and misnumbering, as well as the use of abbreviations, appear in these motions. So my question to the Capstone Committee are they ignoring the will of the club members who voted through their delegates for the 2022-2023 transition year to count as a full term on the executive council? Have they devalued the members' vote, knowing that the members took this information into consideration when casting their votes for this new form of club governance? What weight was placed on the Tom Smithson Statement of Interpretation, the Constitution and Bylaws Committee Statement of Interpretation, and the 2022 Transition Team Report in drafting this motion? Why was Article 8, Section 2, 1 through 8, which was mislabeled in the motion as Article 9, Section 2, 1 through 8, removed in its entirety? And was anything meant to replace it? If so, where in the current motion can its replacements be found? What was the purpose, finally, of making these motions so long? These are just a few of the many questions that I have pertaining to these motions. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, just Polly, Gary, I know you had a list of things, very comprehensive. Did you have a chance to talk with Jim or Jennifer to get answers to those ahead of time?
I'll reach
you're
out to
muted.
Jim Cock.
You're muted.
They were already in, when I saw them on the Wednesday, the 8th, they were already in board effects.
Okay, so no. All right, so let me, and now we're going to go into conversation. So first, let me go back to the motion makers to see if you guys have any questions or clarifications. And Gary had some questions. We can start there, then we'll broaden it out to the rest of the IBT.
Defer to Jennifer to answer first if she wants, and then I will be glad to chime in.
Gary, can you show us where anything was codified in the blue book?
Okay, your definition of codified, when you actually go and look what the codified definition is, it's a way to organize the information. It doesn't specifically state that it has to be a document. It's just so that it prevents double booking of a document. So that's my interpretation of what codify means. The other aspect is that in that original April 5th, the conversation, which was electronically captured, is a method of codifying the information.
April 5th for when?
April 5th, 2022. That full IBT meeting was videotaped and is online.
Actually, let me just, since this is a question of Roberts, let me just defer to Lori Grassi about sort of the whole idea of codification and internal communications versus blah, 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 voting and stuff like that. Can you just help us out here, Lori?
Well, the definition of codified, like any word, has multiple definitions. So to organize is one part of the definition, but in addition, to turn into law is a significant part of the same word. So codifying is a normal term and taking words and making them organized within your constitution, bylaws, and policies to make law. So if it's not codified in those three documents, it is up to interpretation, as we're seeing. I guess I'm struggling with the volume of pages that make up a motion is kind of irrelevant when the committee went to great lengths to try to make those motions actually organized and apply so that they were better understood. So the volume of pages to me is, I mean, yes, it's hard to read when you have difficult motions, but the way to codify something is to appropriately organize it. And I know up to just this last week, our CBL interim chair has been working on making sure that the numbering is accurate, because when you work in conventions of software systems, sometimes there's mistakes. So just as recently as the 9th or 10th, I believe, he's been working to make sure those are accurate.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted the parliamentarian perspective. Okay, so back to Jim and Jennifer. Gary had some questions that one or both of you can address.
Well, I come back to the fact of, are you honoring the original intent of what was originally established back in prior to the event of the voting?
I can take that one as a start. I did take the opportunity to look up the constitutional amendment at the delegate meeting. And the language that you speak of that states that everybody knew that was a 2-year term is not in the original constitutional amendment that the members were provided and voted upon. It wasn't until reading afterwards that the proviso was established before the IBT in a completely separate motion.
I know when during the prior event of the voting, the region presidents, or not the region presidents, but the international presidents came around to each of the region rallies. And I know in our case, Per Hamquist came, and these questions were asked, and he addressed them as stated. That first year was going to be 1 year. That first 1 year was going to be assumed to be a full term. So people were being told that, and that's how they voted. So you're basically, what you're telling me is that you're not abiding by, or you're not abiding by what the vote was based on.
I would counter that you're using a small element or population of people that you know of that was told those things. I personally was not.
Okay, Jim and Jennifer, again, we're replying to questions. I'll let you guys decide. I see Jenny with a hand up. Do you want to continue your thought to get back to Gary, or up to you? Or Jennifer, or how you want to do it?
May I go next?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I'd like to address first, why are the motions so long? I've served on, I think, 15 or more IBT meetings. I don't like long motions. And I agree with a comment that was shared with us that these motions are complicated and that the strikeout is difficult to read. It is. We struggled with that. But it's the clearest way to show the strikeout is showing exactly what is deleted. The red text that's not stricken is showing clearly what is being added. That's all in Exhibit 1. And in Exhibit 2, in clean black text, is what those specific areas look like afterward. Sorry about the length. That's what it takes when you're dealing with this many issues. Yes, there was a clause removed in its entirety. Where is it now? It was in the bylaws, Article 8, Section 2, and it's gone. All, 12 bullets? All 8 bullets are gone. Well, they were exactly redundant with the Constitution. The bylaws do not need to restate the Constitution. The bylaws need to explain what we do. The policy will say how we do it. There was no point in having it redundant. We actually shortened the bylaws through this process. Let's see. All right, that's my turn. Jennifer, you had another point? Sorry.
Yes, I believe you asked Gary, I wasn't able to scribble as fast as you can talk for the questions, so I don't know that I captured all of them. But how much weight was provided for the SOI and the previous documents? You mentioned the transition committee report. Those were all background information documents that were provided, and we did use the questions that were brought up in the SOI to help guide us through the Blue Book to see what the answers were. If we could go to some other questions, that would be great.
All right, so first Jenny Schnettler, and then Florence, then Michael.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jenny Schnettler. And regarding the document that they're talking about, I'm the author of it.
Which document? Can you just speak
This
with what
document that Gary is referring to, April 5th IBT presentation, April 5th of 2022, the transition team summary. In there, it was very, very clear that the first year would count as the transition year that would count as a full term beginning on August 1st of 2022. I really appreciate all the hard work that Jim and Jennifer have done. This is a tough one. And the argument that unless it's codified or specifically stated inside the Constitution, we cannot really consider past, quote, conversations, intent, or reports because they're strictly not the information that made it into the Constitution. What concerns me is, where was this disconnect? I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure why this language didn't get into that Constitution initially, because it was a part of the original proposal and the original acceptance of this entire idea, as reiterated by a lot of people who did vote for it, now coming forward and saying, wait a minute, that's where our challenge is coming, and that's why this is a sticky and potentially contentious issue for us. The second argument that, well, we're going to draw a line in the sand and that we're going to now set August of 2023 as the beginning date because it makes sense. That's about as, frankly, arbitrary as anything. It making sense, though the people that were on the very first EC were serving on the EC. They were not serving on any other body. So the EC began on August 1st of 2022. This is a very important point because, unfortunately, the argument that unless it's written in the Constitution, we cannot consider the previous information, it's only informational use only. Well, we can't rewrite what we had as what we intended to do, and that's what this date is. The August of 23 date is doing. It's rewriting something. I'm nervous, guys. I'm nervous that we are looking like we don't know what we're doing, and people are accusing us of bait and switch and dishonesty and not being transparent and even having secret meetings. None of those things are true. We're all trying to serve in the best way possible. I would like to see a lot of the information in these motions passed, but this one particular little sticky part about redefining, I don't think that's the right way for us to go at this point. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. Florence, and then Michael, and then Lori Grassi.
Well, thank you, Eric. I wasn't part of the discussion in 2022. And so in my term as region president and member of the IBT serving the club, I try to start my study of all these different current and past motions we've dealt with based on facts. Facts, I've been taught, live in the Blue Book. And there are lots of other opinions and intentions that exist around any motion. And I think those are not relevant. We can't base our decision-making in this instant on this little difficult part of what is a great cleanup motion on internal documents that represent opinions. And the statement, the SOI is just that. It's an internal document. It was never meant, I think, to be considered by the IBT. And we cannot base a vote, or I should not base my vote on these motions on people's comments and good intentions. So I'm stuck with the language that we've all accepted in our governing documents. I'm stuck saying that the executive officers are elected by the IBT. And we've only done that once. We did that once in 2023 in July. And even though I think it's great that we can talk about things and say, well, we said that and somebody videoed this. That's all good, but that is not what governs our club. And ultimately, we have to we're going to have to all vote on this. And I just asked myself, what is best for the good of this club? And I think what's best is to stick to what our Constitution says we are.
Okay, thanks, Florence. Michael, and then Lori Grassi.
Yes, I have one very important question. I want to finish what I'm saying before it's answered, please. First is, if we're going to have a public study session, why were the motions not made public in general? Our membership has come to me and asked days ago when this was announced, before it was put forward into the board effects, what are these motions? Can I look at them? And I find it difficult to answer my membership appropriately if they're not made public, especially at a public study session. So I think that's a very viable question. The second thing
Did you
is
want
the
to answer that now,
transitions.
or did you want
Yeah,
to
if
wait
you
a while?
want, and then let me finish, please.
Yeah,
Go
so
ahead, Eric.
study sessions are different. They're not board meetings, right? We are no obligation to put this stuff out 14 days in advance. We're just not. These are for informal discussions. That's why. We typically would never, I mean, I've been in a lot of study sessions. We never do it ahead of time. So the important thing for our members, the important date for our members is that we publish the motions, well, a couple days ago, and that's 14 days before you all vote on it. And the belief is that those 14 days should allow the members to be able to look at that content. That's what we typically do, Michael. So it's just a matter of how we do study sessions. We don't do them very often, as you know, either. So,
Well, I understand
the
that
next
they're public
question
now,
then.
so.
What's that?
So the second
I
this
missed
is a
the second part of
statement.
what you said.
Yeah, I said now that they're made public, I can now share that with
Yeah,
the
they're on
membership ask.
airfinkel.org/IBT. They went up a couple days ago.
Okay, so the second thing is that the transition team published a document. And what my question is why are we not bringing forward all the named members that are on that transition team document? That document was a preamble to a contract, the way I see it, from reading it, and that prompted a constitutional vote from the membership. Which brings us to here. The organization of the codification of documents is a post effect from that. The other thing that I want to
Do
point
you want
out
to
is
answer
that
that one also?
Yeah.
We typically, most committee, so think about the committee chairs, the committees you've been around, be it membership or be it CBL or be it finance. We typically don't, as a matter of course, share who the committee members are. It's not a secret. But I can guarantee you, though, in the transition team, on the documents, those names are on there. 'Cause I know that Jim ran one of them. I know that Jenny ran the other one. So the names are actually on there. They're not hidden. If anyone has interest in it, I can get them to them later or someone else can. It's just that that was a document that was done years and years ago. And I don't think anyone asked for that before. And if you wanted those names before, just ask Jim or Jenny. That's how you get them. Or
the
look in more
last thing is in these motions, there's a refer to changing the verbiage of people's involvement in these positions using the term ex ofacto. And this is a little bit confusing. Under Robert's rules, ex ofacto members mean, if you look under specifically Robert's rules, that they have all the privileges, including the right to vote. And that directly contradicts what our Constitution states in several cases in certain positions. So,
okay, so let me ask Lori to jump in now, because I'm confused on what you were getting at. Are you suggesting the committee members should have a vote equal to the IBT members?
I was saying that the financial director and the executive director are ex ofacto, and looking up the exact definition in Robert's rules, it entitles them the right to vote, which violates the Constitution.
Okay, so let me pass that to Lori Grassi on that one.
So it's ex officio is the term. I'll have to look up, I'll need a minute to look it up because I don't like to cite things unless I've either looked it up recently or know exactly. But it is common language. And if you use the term ex officio for a titled person, your club documents decide if they vote or not. But I would still like to take a minute and look that up to be sure, because I couldn't cite the reference right now.
Michael, can you tell me where in the motion that is so that I can mark it?
Bear with me, Jen. I had it highlighted on my side.
Okay.
Give me a moment, please. So if you go to, I'm under the motion item number 2025-01, bylaws amendments to align with the financial director position constitutional change. If you go to Article 3, the executive director shall be in ex officio, sorry, little too much coffee today, ex officio member of the committee. And again, under Robert's rules, specifically, it says that that means something different. There are other places, I'm sorry, I'm going through this, under Section 12, Executive Council, it's mentioned again there. And then during the capstone document, I don't have it handy, Jen, I apologize. I got 3 screens open, so it's a little tricky to do this while I'm on the screen with everyone. It's also mentioned there in several places. Again, I feel that it the meaning contradicts what's in the Constitution. One last statement, and I'll stop here if you don't mind, is the titles are misleading compared to the content in the motions. And I just find that a bit confusing. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Micah. So would it be okay if there's some clarification if needed that says that the only voting members are described in the Constitution?
I think that we need to go back to the term where it clearly states non-voting member, in my opinion, which was what was originally there.
Okay, so I'm not discounting that. I'm just suggesting that in the interest of this conversation, I think it's pretty clear to most of us on this call that the only voting members are the people, the IBT members plus the executive council. There's been no interest, no expectation that either the finance director, which is specifically described as non-voting, or executive director, which has never been voting and described as non-voting. So I'm not sure, that feels like a little bit of a quarter thing, but I think we can address that offline, unless there's some interest that anyone has to having those voting. I don't think anyone does.
I can address that too now, Eric. I
Okay.
a few things, but the other part would be the example of our documents defining the president. So our president is not ex officio. He's an actual participant in the board and the presiding officer, but our club documents define that he cannot vote. But Roberts would say
Unless
that
there's a tie.
Right, unless there's a tie, yes, sorry. And Robert's Rules of Order does not dictate that a president cannot and should not vote. In fact, Robert's Rules of Order says, why would you take away a vote from a president? So if the term ex officio is causing anxiety for people, then we can certainly look at that. Remember, your bylaws can be changed all the time. So I'm not suggesting you give the CBL more work to do. They have quite a list already, but for the term, to answer your question specifically, ex officio does allow people to vote. So if that should be, but because our club documents don't allow the executive director, in our case, the finance director and the parliamentarian, they don't vote as defined in our club documents. But I don't have an opinion about clarifying that. It's that would be something you should raise with the CBL, and it makes sense.
Okay, I don't think there's a conflict there, so let's assume that's resolved.
Yeah. So because I was next in queue, I just want to say, with regard to this work, I guess I'm struggling with the anxiety and the emotion all around these two motions. And the reason is because, as I already said, you can make a motion to change your bylaws anytime. You are all in leadership. To have a motion proposed by a committee to recommend a date, whether it follows an intended document from 2 years ago or not, or what was, quote, sold politically or not, is just one way. There are 2 ways to answer this proposed question. There's also a process by which you can amend that if you don't like the proposal that is given by the committee. And I mean, I regularly say to people, count your votes. And if you don't like what's there, make an amendment and then count your votes, whether it's the proposed motion by, in this case, leadership recruitment and or CBL, or your amendment. So there's a lot of that I've heard. I'm not on social media for a lot of reasons. And I've heard there's a lot of things being said on social media. Everybody's pontificating. Is that good for our club? I don't know. I think it's better for our club to ask the question, should it be 2022? Should it be 2023? Count your votes and let's stop beating each other up, because it feels a little dramatic. And I don't mean to undercut people's emotions about something and process, but it just seems like it doesn't need to be so hard.
Thanks, Laurie. Okay, Millie and then Terry and then Tracy.
Thank you, Eric. First of all, I want to thank you for holding a study session. The opportunity for us to shorten the actual IBT meeting by showing up to it fully informed and prepared to vote and understanding the content of the motions is why we're here. Yeah, the motion's long. I hate long motions. I don't like to read something and feel like I've missed out on my law degree before I get to the end. That's just me. I love the little ones where we're fixing a flag or we're changing a logo. Those are great. Those are my favorites. But a lot of work went into this, and kudos to the committees that put it together, because it's a giant pain in the keister to do this stuff. And they've walked the walk and done the work. We do not want to beat them up over this. They've worked hard for this club. That being said, I've already made it known that I disagree with only one portion of the entire motion. I think everything should go through, except I do think that the terms started in 2022. And the reality is we have the opportunity to make an amendment to the motion, friendly or otherwise, so that everything else in there, which is really good, valid stuff, can go through along with a small change. But kudos to everybody for getting the work done.
Thanks, Millie. Well said. Terry and then Tracy.
Good morning. So I should remember all this, but I honestly don't. So if the Constitution says that the IBT needs to elect the officers, how did we elect the officers if the first one wasn't till 2023? I don't remember exactly how that happened. And the other question that I have, and I should know, I agree, is that when the constitutional amendment to restructure the EC went through, was it included that it would only, that the 2022 would be 1 year? Because I don't think so. Was the, maybe somebody could clarify that for me. I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Start, unless you want to address it, Jim. Okay. So how did we elect in 2022? We elected in the way that we've done the delegate elections in the previous years, very much in alignment with the old executive committee. What was done was that the nominations committee came up with the slate of proposed officers. They really looked for the third VP, and then all other officers were moved up in their ascension to the president role. The recommended slate of officers went out to the delegates. The delegates voted with the strength and power of their club behind them. And then those people were approved by the IBT to roll into the old positions. Sorry. That's how it was done. It was never previously done as outlined by the Constitution in sections Article 8 and Article 7. So it was very much done under the old executive committee way. And the fact that it was one term also actually aligns with the old executive committee way.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks, Jennifer. Let me go back to, I'm sorry, I'm just being mindful of our time. We're going to take about 15 minutes max. We're going to close. So Tracy and then Lori and then Fred.
Can I just quickly say that no, it was not included in what was put into the Constitution, bylaws, or policy.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, Tracy.
Hey, good morning, and thanks everyone, because I know this was a tremendous amount of work and continues to be a tremendous amount of work. Just a couple of comments that are somewhat general, but there's a lot of abbreviations in the two motions. And since they are going directly into the Blue Book, I would prefer that the abbreviations be spelled out. I think it makes it clearer for continuous and ongoing governance. I do agree with some of the other comments that the title and the summary should be more akin to what Jennifer did when she made her introduction, so that we can clearly see what we're expecting through these documents. Jennifer, that was great in your introduction of telling us specifically what these documents were going to address. I concur that we've used the term ex officio when talking about at least the executive director, and I think that we've all known that that's not to be a voting position, but the definition under Roberts and under Board Effects says that that position does vote. So if we could clear that up, take ex officio out, I think that would make everyone feel much more comfortable. I noticed that in the, let me see, it's 2025-01, that there is a section where we talk about the immediate past president installing the officers to the IBT, the region presidents to the IBT. I would prefer to leave that very general. Whoever installs them, installs them. I may be wrong, but I think limiting who can do that installation may cause us some difficulties in the future. I also noted that, I guess this is kind of a question for me. Under Section 5, the election and terms of executive officers, in that particular section of this motion, it doesn't mention about quorums or majorities or any of those things. So because it's a virtual meeting, I wonder if we need to put a little definition around how those votes are counted. What if we don't get a quorum? Can we hold the meeting? I don't think so under our other documents, but that's just a question that popped into my head. Let's see, I'm almost done, I promise. So in this motion, 01, we talk about 11 executive council members, but over in the motion 02, we talk about 9 executive council members. So I don't understand why there's a discrepancy there. And maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm reading too much into that, but don't quite get that. And then my last, I think it's my last one. In section 4, we talk about the finance director. We're defining the finance director, but we don't mention under his duties that one of them is to lead the finance committee. And again, it may be that it's somewhere else in the documents, not these documents, but in our Constitution. But I think that we're defining the duties of that position, and I suspect that leading that committee is a primary duty as well, and maybe needs to be added. Let me just glance through my notes real quick, make sure that there's not anything else. That's all that I have, but in general, like several have confirmed, I do believe that 2022 is when we should start counting the term. All right, thank you.
Tracy, great questions. And by the way, just for you guys, so the number of people on the executive committee / council, it's kind of confusing to me sometimes when I first started, because we elect 9, but also we consider that the executive director is part of the executive council, and we consider that the parliamentarian is part of the executive council. So if there's a way to clarify that, right, that might be helpful. I think that's what you're getting at.
It is.
Tracy, right. All right, Lori, and then Lori Tilton, and then Fred.
Thanks, Eric. So I think I've been around 10 plus years, and one thing that's bothering me today, listening to the conversation, is we are spending a lot of time and energy looking at our past. And that's not where we as a business or a club should be looking. We need to analyze where we are today. And again, in my chair, we are almost a totally different club than we were back in 2020 when we started these conversations about changing our structure. So at this level, you all know this is business. This is not popularity. This is not who's been in the club the longest, who gets a chance. We need people with skills to be on this board to make great business decisions so we can continue this club in the future. The structure is totally different on the EC these last 2 years. More work has been done than I've seen in probably years before. So that's all I wanted to say. Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, Lori. Fred, and then Jim.
Yes, good morning, everyone. And again, thanks for all the work that goes into this stuff. These are tricky to read and understand. So in the motion, when we talk about the makeup of the board, the finance director is a non-voting member. When they talk about the makeup of the executive council, they do not distinguish that. Does the finance director have a vote on the council? And did we miss a few words in there somewhere, or did I not read correctly?
They are not a voting member on the EC, and I think it says it in here. I'm pretty sure, but I can find that and get it back to you.
So first, Fred, let me ask it a little bit different way. The executive council very rarely, if ever, makes actionable decisions with respect to our bylaws at our club, right? The executive council is more administrative, right? So anything that the club does in terms of its governing stuff, the EC doesn't vote on that. So really the IBT, you all are the people that vote. Sure, the executive council may say that, oh yeah, we like this policy, but non-CBL policy on, IR dates, or maybe we recommend that we like this on that, or some personal related issues, but we do not vote on club policy. So in some ways it's a bit moot, but your point is well taken. But frankly, in the executive council, it's kind of like here, this meeting, everyone talks. It's not really run through Roberts. It's just like a committee. And, we keep minutes though, but it's just a round the table discussion, typically around opportunities or issues we have, or kind of get the agenda set up for future meetings. So, but well taken, Fred. Thank you.
One comment to that, though, they specifically mentioned that you do not have a vote on the council. They didn't say that about the finance director. That was why I brought it up.
Fred, if you look at the Constitution, Article 7, Section 1B, it states the non-voting finance director shall be elected by the voting members of the IBT from candidates solicited from the general club membership. So it does identify the finance director as non-voting there.
Yeah, and that the whole president voting thing, it's a bit of a weird thing anyway, because, I've obviously been president for one term on the executive committee, and then one term so far on, or 1.5 on the executive council. I've never voted. I would imagine that Mona and Jim have the same thing, is that if we ever get to, what's that?
I voted.
Oh, you did vote. Okay. You got it. You did a tiebreaker one time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I never have. And I think it's one of these things where my belief as a leader is that if we come down to a tie vote where the president has to vote, then we've pretty much failed to reach a good consensus of our team. There's probably a better proposal that we could all get behind. So I'm glad I've never had to vote. If I ever had to vote, I would probably encourage that instead of me doing a tiebreaker, that we go back and take a look at it some more, see if we can get more people on board. Having a divided EC is just, or IBT is just the wrong way to govern our club, in my personal opinion. All right, Jim, and then Gary again.
Well, I know we're out of time, but very briefly, yeah, I had to break a tie, and because of the importance of it, I remember exactly, it was the Sarasota IBT meeting. I didn't want to do that, but you don't have a choice. Okay. I want to reflect very quickly on Tracy's comment about a lot of abbreviations. We looked at that and we went forward and then reverted. We tried to. For the bylaws, we tried to avoid abbreviations. And I'm perfectly game for the bylaws, which is a more formal document to me, like the Constitution. I'm all for keeping the abbreviations out of it. For the policy about just how we do things, not that it's fast and loose, but if we've introduced a term with the abbreviation, I think for the policy, it's a good idea to make it shorter and say the IBT, the EC. Just a thought. And I will work as a CBL interim chair, I will work at the IBT's direction and our president's direction on that point. Thanks for bringing that up, Tracy.
Thanks, you. Gary, and after Gary, I'm going to ask other people who haven't had a chance to talk if they want to have any comments before we wrap for the day. Okay, Gary.
Okay. First off, I wanted to challenge what Lori was saying. WBCCI is a social club. It's a 501c7. It is not a business. Okay, we're a nonprofit. So for you to start saying that we're a business, we aren't. We're a social club.
Gary, we are a corporation in the state of Ohio. We are a not-for-profit corporation. That is a business. We have business filings we have to contend to. The 501c7 is an IRS structure. So we do have corporate documents. We are a business. The way I look at it, we are a business. We are a social club, and the business product is camping.
Okay. The other factor I wanted to bring out is that there were 4 committees to address this particular topic that we've been discussing. And all 4 of them walked away with the same response, that 2022-2023 was to be considered a full term. They all came away with that same aspect.
The only committees we have now are, well, we have CBL, we have leadership recruitment, and we have the special committee, the capstone. So what are the other, what's the other one that came away?
Well, the original transition.
Oh, okay. 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 All right. Understood. Okay, John, and then other people who haven't had a chance to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Since you've asked for final comments, when are we going to start talking about camping?
Well, so fortunately, John, I'm glad you said that.
No, but well, anyway,
totally.
The idea, I think the problem we're going to have is this whole idea about the 1 year being a 2-year term. We need to quell this through the membership. There's a rumble now of conspiracy theories. People are getting upset. I've seen the social comments and so forth, and it's really gotten out of hand. And they think that the IBT and the executive committee or council are trying to pull something over on them. And that certainly is not the case. And understanding what Jennifer and Jim have done has been remarkable in that they've taken the documents that we know that are written down, and why that was never acknowledged in the paperwork or the bylaws or whatever when it was suggested and written by Jenny originally goes beyond me. So it was a mistake that was made, but apparently everybody remembers that. So I think I'm not quite sure how to solve the problem, but we are going to have a problem unless we address that with the membership. They're going to be very upset, and I've never seen the membership comment so much about so much in this regard as I've seen recently. Thank you.
Okay, other people who haven't chatted, I see John Deegan, Jan, Chris Olson. I will keep going on the list. Sean. Any other comments? Kathy, Kendall, before we roll out of this? Jan, go ahead. You're muted.
Okay, there we go. Looking at all this and listening to everybody's views, you know, everybody has what they think is right and what we feel it should have been, and it wasn't written in the Constitution. As John just said, why was it not in the Constitution? I have no idea, because I firmly believe that when we were telling our people that 1 year term would count as a full term. And we look at ambiguous, and it says open to move, open to more than one interpretation. And that's what we've got here. And we've got to do something about it. You've got before, you know, why was this left out? Shame on us for not getting in there. Or shall we change it and make it sound like that we need to just change all this and it's 2023 on forward. So I'm like, John, I don't know how to deal with this. I don't know what we should do. But personally, I believe that's what we told our people. I even did a webinar thinking that this is the way it was stated. But we need to really get our heads together. We need to work this out. We need to get it going and get the people, let our people know what's going on. And we just need to be out there for them, think of them first and us second. And that's basically what I have to say.
Thanks, Jen. Mona?
Okay, as the, I guess you could say, OG leadership recruitment special committee chair and standing committee chair, I spent some time looking at what we put together. It was a great team. We hustled and got it done very quickly. Fortunately or unfortunately, in preparing all that we did, I don't believe, and I don't recall this part of the discussion being something that was going to be a problem later on. We did not talk about the 1 year, actually, in the application process, we talked about 2 years on the IBT. We talked about somewhere in the document itself, that first year counting as 2 years of service, so you could be considered for the IBT or for the EC under the new structure. Speaking of EC, we use EC in two different ways. We use it in the old way and the new way. So it can get a little confusing for a lot of members. So with that said, that wasn't a sticking point for us. It was just not something that we brought forward or considered to even discuss and bring forward in what we did. That's not to say things have to be static. I love what the EC is, what this whole committee is doing now. I have never seen so much progress, so much collaboration. It's a lot of work, but I think it's a very impressive amount of work that we're doing. I hate what it's doing to our members and our membership. It just breaks my heart to see the angst, and what is coming from that angst is passion for the club. So if we can find a way to balance all that and work through this, that would be great. That's just my 2 cents from the OG.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments from people who haven't spoken? Sean, Kathy, Chris, John, before I make sure everyone gets a chance. As I said in my email to y'all, we need to resolve this on the 23rd, one way or another, right? So, Sean, go ahead. Oh, we can't hear you. No, it's not a mute thing. I think it's a microphone thing. Still can't hear you. Okay, anybody else before we close? So I just want to thank you all. As I don't know, as Mona said, this has been just a wonderful few years for our club, and before then too. We were going into our 70th anniversary, and this really should be a time where we as a club, we focus on the fact that we're the largest, fastest growing social club, camping club in the world, right? And we have passionate members who love to camp. And that's where our focus needs to get on. And someone asked, how do we get by this? Well, the way you get by these things is you vote on them, right? I mean, that's what you all are here for. We can talk about all you want. We can have memos flying back and forth all you want. But ultimately, the way we decide this is that we vote on it and it goes to be a part of the record. So that's the beauty of this thing. You all have the opportunity on the 23rd to make it what you want it to be, as long as it's consistent. I think what I've heard personally is that either way it goes, it's probably going to be viewed as close enough. And as Jim said, that, you know, on issues of ambiguity, you guys, the board, has the ability to make that decision. So because we're going to move on, right? This is not a big deal for the vast majority of our members. The vast majority of our members. So up to y'all. I think after this, I'm hoping we can focus on some of the new initiatives we have going around camping, our focus on the 70th year, our focus on retaining and displaying our history to the historical center we're going to talk about next week. That's the cool stuff, right? Okay, Jim, and let me go to Kathy first because she popped up at the last minute there, then back to Jim.
Thanks, Eric. And again, thanks to everybody for everything you've done on this. It was a ton of work. I just go back to what I think it was Jim Cox said. There's a reason why your windshield on your car is huge and your rear view mirror is small. And again, I'll also go back to Lori Tilton. We need to look forward. A lot of the ugliness that I see on the social media posts are people that just don't want to see change. And let me tell you, all you have to do is look around at other social clubs that have died because they stuck their feet in the sand and said, not going to change, not going to move forward. So I urge everybody, I think this is great that we all had a chance to talk about this, and thank you very much. Read it again and then vote for the best for the membership.
Okay, Jim?
Yeah, so the caption on my name says EC, but I'm speaking now as the acting CBL chair. I am at your service as a neutral servant on any motions that you would like to bring for next week. And if you want to bring any amendments to this motion and run them by me, it will not color my approach or my standing at all. And I will help you make sure, with the help of Lori Grassi, parliamentarian, that your language is the best we can make it for your motion to carry or for your amendment to help. So please feel free to send to Ms. Grassi and me, or individually, or to motions@airstreamclub.org, airstreamclub.org, anything that you want us to help with on that. Thank you. And thanks for y'all's attentive and great considered work today looking at all this. Thank you.
Again, my final ask would be for the 23rd, we vote, we all move forward as a team, right? With 21 people, or 20 minus me, right? You know, we often don't have unanimous votes. I do not expect one on the 23rd, but whatever the vote is, I like to ask that all of you are respectful of your peers and how your peers voted, right? That it's behind us, right? And then we focus on what I think really matters to 99% of our club members is that, are they having a great rewarding camping? Are they learning about their Airstreams? Are they learning about our history? Are they having fun with their local clubs? That's where I would love to see this board start to focus on after the 23rd. All righty? Okay, everyone, thank you so much for your precious time. I really appreciate it. And go have a good rest of the day. All righty, bye-bye.